अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाज़रीन, सिंध टेलीविजन न्यूज़ जे पारां मां हमारे मेज़बान फयाज़ नाइच। नाज़रीन अॼोके ॾींहं में गुफ़्तगू कंदासूं अमेरिका जे स्कॉलर जेको जंहिं वॾे अरसे ताईं अमेरिका जी इलिनॉय यूनिवर्सिटी जे अंदरि पढ़ायो आहे, प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर मार्विन वाइनबॉम जेका उहा अॼोके प्रोग्राम में असांजा महिमान आहिनि। डॉक्टर मार्विन जेके आहिनि उहे जीअं मूं तव्हांखे ॿुधायो इलिनॉय यूनिवर्सिटी जे अंदरि पढ़ायो आहे उन्हनि, उन सां गॾोगॾु हुननि जेको आहे स्टेट डिपार्टमेंट जे अंदरि बि 1999 खां वठी 2003 ताईं जेको आहे जेका पाकिस्तान ऐं अफ़गानिस्तान जे बारे में एनालिस्ट तौरु कमु कयो आहे। अॼुकल्ह हू मिडल ईस्ट इंस्टीट्यूट में हिकिड़े रिसर्च स्कॉलर तौरु कमु करे रहिया आहिनि। संदसि जेका एक्सपर्टीज़ आहे अफ़गानिस्तान, पाकिस्तान ऐं ईरान जेके आहिनि उन्हनि मुल्कनि ते उनजी एक्सपर्टीज़ आहे। दहशतगर्दी, सियासत, मईशत, डेवलपमेंट एंड डेमोक्रेटाइज़ेशन जेका आहे उहे हुनजा सब्जेक्ट आहिनि। अचो त उन सां गुफ़्तगू कयूं। Professor Dr. Marvin Weinbaum, first of all, I would like to welcome you in my show.
And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and to your audience.
Doctor, let me start because my focus of today's conversation with you will be Afghanistan and Pakistan and U.S. foreign policy towards this area. How do you see the foreign policy of Bush and Obama administration towards Afghanistan and Pakistan after 9/11?
Well, it is one of necessity. The feeling that the United States could not pursue its objectives in Afghanistan without the cooperation of Pakistan. Remember the previous 10 years of the 90s, there was very little contact. The idea was that the United States, after the Soviet army had left Afghanistan, that the United States really had very limited interest in this part of the world. And of course there was this legislation in the United States which said that any country which was developing nuclear weapons could not receive American aid. That was forgotten, even though there was evidence, of course, that Pakistan did have a weapons program. That was ignored during the 1980s when we, together with the Saudis, supported the Mujahideen. But it was revived and became the basis then for the end of all assistance to Pakistan, and we walked away from the region. Of course, that was a terrible mistake. Sometimes people say, when we're here, things bad happen. Well, we went away and bad things happened. What happened was, of course, during the 1990s, when we left and took no responsibility at all for the post-communist period after 1992, Afghanistan fell into civil war. And then another civil war between the Taliban and the northern ethnic groups. And meanwhile, in Pakistan, where we had no longer any leverage with the military or civilians, you went through a tumultuous time between one government and another government and another government and another government. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda was organizing. Meanwhile, of course, nuclear program went ahead, but we had no influence on that at all, on advising here, because we have a lot of experience with nuclear weapons, obviously. So we walked away, and we didn't come back until, well, with Afghanistan, we came back in the late 1990s, in 1998, because of an attack by Al-Qaeda on American embassies in Africa. Osama bin Laden was in Afghanistan, so we then mounted attack on a cruise missile attack in an effort to kill him, failed. But it was 9/11 which brought us back together with Pakistan. We had 10 years then, 11 years, in which we had minimal kind of interaction. But in this time, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and generally speaking, the region was undergoing a good deal of instability. So we came back, and again, as I said before, we very much needed to work together with Pakistan. And it was said, and General Musharraf said to the Pakistan people, he said, we're going to cooperate, but we're going to be rewarded for doing this. And so the aid program began again. Aid specifically to the military to help directly against insurgents, terrorists, and aid on the civilian side as well. So that, I think, is the background. And we have continued to, Pakistan has been the second largest recipient of foreign aid after Israel for this period of time. And I think that the total figure is over $20 billion. Now, it's not quite CPAC, if that's but interestingly, it was almost entirely, that is the American portion of it, not the international financial institutions. It was almost entirely grants. I might mention that CPAC is loans. Big difference. One you repay, the other you don't repay.
So I was asking about the foreign policy of Bush administration and Obama administration to handling the Afghan issue after 9/11. Do you see any kind of difference between two administrations' policies?
Yes. To begin with, the Bush administration made the most minimal commitment once the communist government fell and the Mujahideen, after 9/11, made the most minimal, had the most minimal involvement earlier during the 90s. Minimal involvement because the United States was then, as I say, without interest. But even when it became interested after 9/11, it was minimal. We, wrongly so, decided that the important area was Iraq and Saddam Hussein. And so we immediately after 9/11 and the fall of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and their escape basically to Pakistan, the United States put all its attention on Iraq and largely forgot about Afghanistan. And that did not change until the Iraq War was over. And then President Bush looked at the situation, which after 2006 was deteriorating when a serious insurgency began, and then took greater interest, certainly by the time of let's say by the end of, by 2007 or so, Bush was getting more involved. But it was with Obama that there was a refocus on Afghanistan. And he said, he referred to it as the forgotten war. But you see, his interest was strange in a way, because while he wanted to refocus on Afghanistan, Iraq was behind us, we thought. While we wanted to focus on this, he said, yes, we'll commit now many more troops in a surge, but we'll only keep them there until 14.
Yeah.
So it was decision here to make an effort to secure military success, but with a date when it was effectively going to end, and at that point the Afghans would have to take over. Many people, maybe even the administration itself, views that as a mistake, because once you announced that you were going to leave, it meant that your adversary was going to say, well, we'll wait until you're out.
What is your take on that?
Well, I think it was an error. I think it was an error. But I think the general concept was, to understand it, is because the American public did not want a commitment to the war in Afghanistan, which was endless. So Obama was saying, yes, we'll make an effort here, a serious effort. Together with our allies, we'll have 140, 150,000 troops. And if that should work. But unfortunately, the job was not finished. And it was a much more difficult job. And then by 2014, we cut back on this. Today, there are 9,500, and the allies also. So altogether, maybe 14 or 15,000, where there was 150,000. So the burden was then shifted to
Afghanistan. So do you think that this is a workable arrangement?
I think that this is the case. What we're doing is we're buying time with a minimal investment, which is a necessary investment. If we took out the military, certainly if we took out the economic support, there's no question that the Afghan government is too weak. It doesn't have the revenues to be able to meet the needs of the people and also fight an insurgency. So that it's necessary to have an investment. What that minimal investment is that is sufficient is difficult to say. The general feeling, my feeling, is that it will take perhaps 10,000, 15,000 troops more or less going forward here for a few years, all in an effort, and continued international support, all in an effort to buy time for the Afghans to put their military security forces, that is, police and particularly the soldiers, the army, to let them stand up against the insurgency. It means giving them a certain amount of equipment, and it means also giving them training, air support, and some special forces to specifically deal with groups like Al-Qaeda.
Well,
Let me just add, there are two more legs to this. The other is to give them time to have a transitional economy, because it was heavily dependent upon foreign aid. Once the military pulled out, much of that dollars that were flowing through disappeared. They have to be able to build their economy, give them time to do that. And finally, very importantly, that they take this unity government and make it function. This is something they have not succeeded in doing. They have not succeeded in providing the governance that people expect, and they have not instilled confidence in this government by their own behavior. So these are three: security, economics, political transitions which they have not made, and the hope is that give them another 5 years, say, that they will be able to do so, and then they'll be in a position. Then they'll be in a position to negotiate out of strength, not out of weakness. And then they will also, we'll see whether there is anyone to negotiate with. But even if the Taliban leader does not want to negotiate, if you're successful enough, then you can begin to peel away the supporters of the Taliban, the foot soldiers also, and say time is on the side of the government, not the Taliban.
But Dr. Marvin, you will be aware that until now we see that more than 40% of the area is under the control of the Taliban.
I don't know what the exact percentage would be, 30, it could be 40, but
Yeah.
it's serious.
Yeah.
It's the
And
rural,
they have
areas,
they-
it's not the population.
They have the power to attack big cities
Big
like
cities,
Kudus,
yes,
and
Kudus,
they,
and Kabul as
yes,
well.
yes, they
Because
have
it's
yesterday they
threatened.
have bombed Kabul. Few days ago they have bombed the Bagram air base of the US.
Very
US,
important, very
yes.
significant.
So they have that kind of capacity that still they can do that kind of
Absolutely.
So when the foreign troops are going away, and Afghan national security is not capable to tackle or handle the Afghan Taliban attacks, the things will deteriorate in future.
Well, this is the concern. Can they stabilize the situation? They can tolerate a certain degree of lack of control in the countryside. Can they protect the cities as they buy time? The Taliban are unable to put their flag down anywhere, but they have been very effective in informally controlling large areas. Maybe, I don't know if it's, I wouldn't say they control, but they're contesting perhaps that many districts in the country. No, this is very real, and this is why right now the government, which says it wants negotiations, would be negotiating from a position of weakness, not strength. You have had your own experience in negotiating with your Taliban, your Tehrik Taliban, TTP, and you know all those agreements. I don't know, maybe 6 agreements. All of them failed because the army negotiated them at the time from a position of weakness. When Jabal Azb began, you moved from a position of strength. And realizing that there was not going to be a political settlement, that you had to do this using military force.
But in Afghanistan, we also see the kind of conflict of interest of different ethnic groups, and that are visible in the unity government also, because Abdullah and Ashraf Ghani, they are not on the same page on so many issues. And we see that a lot of National Army officers belong to the northern areas, and the Pashtuns feel that they have been marginalized. So these are also the forces. You know, few days ago, 7 ministers have been impeached by, and they have been by the parliament. The parliament is against the administration. That parliament and the administration are at the verge of head-on collision. So these are also the
Yeah, I think the only thing I would question what you said is I think that there is a feeling here that somehow the Pashtuns are well, like the president is Pashtun. The military Pashtuns have important positions in the military. I question that the Pashtuns are in a disadvantaged position. This is true, that the Pashtuns are not organized, whereas the Northerners have leadership, divided maybe, Uzbek, Tajik, Hazara, Turkoman. The Pashtuns have never been united. They've never been able to stand effectively behind anyone. Karzai was, of course, Pashtun also.
But they have always...
But that's not the real problem. Yes, there is ethnic difference. And the difference between Dr. Abdullah and Ashraf Ghani is not that they see things differently, ideological or even they want the same thing for the country. But they are part of a political, that is, they have backers, all of whom expected in this administration that they would be in control. And then they found that they had to divide up the positions. And that's and that having to divide it up has created, and it's based on personalities as much, not ideology, not programs, it's personalities that drive them. There is really no different vision that Pashtuns have than Tajiks have about the kind of country they want. No, but there are long-standing grievances, hates that drive these people, and just simply ambition, because one side wanted all the positions, the other side, now they've had to compromise, and they've found it so difficult to compromise. And the parliament is another factor. Here you have people who don't belong, by and large, to any political party, and it is unruly. It never meets. It can never get a quorum, enough people to hold its sessions. It is completely dysfunctional. All they can do, effectively, is oppose the executive. So what they do is they make it very difficult for the executive because they feel that they are ignored.
So you say that there is a long road to go in the state building institutions in the...
We have to have patience, but we only hope that we will be strong enough to last.
Well, Dr. Marvin Weinbaum, I will be going for a short break, and after break I will be talking with you about do you expect any kind of change after January when Donald Trump will take over as
Why
president?
did I know you were going to ask this?
नाज़रीन वटि वक़्फ़ो वापस अची अमेरिकन स्कॉलर प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर मार्विन वाइनबॉम सां गुफ्तगू जारी रहंदी वठूं था हिकिड़ो वक़्फ़ो वक़्फ़े खां पोइ असां सां गॾु रहिजो वेलकम बैक नाज़रीन चौथो प्रोग्राम के सिलसिले के अॻिते वधायूं गुफ्तगू हलंदड़ हुई अमेरिका जे मिडिल ईस्ट इंस्टीट्यूट के स्कॉलर मारूफ दानिश्वर प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर मार्विन जी वाइनबॉम सां अचो था उन गुफ्तगू के अॻिते वधायूं वेल डॉक्टर मार्विन Donald Trump is the president-elect.
Yes.
Do you expect any kind of change of policy towards this region?
Certainly not early on. The president-elect has indicated what his agenda is likely to be. Whether he actually delivers on what he said is another matter. There are some of us who hope he does not, that he changes his position on a number of issues, and he may do that. But we know where his attention is going to be, and that will be basically domestic. There is nothing in this part of the world which is going to force him to make any tough decisions. Yes, he will have to decide on the level of troops in Afghanistan. And his generals may say, we need a few more thousand, but not say we want a great many. So I would not rule out, depending on who is advising him, I would not rule out the addition of another 5,000, for example. And given what was intended to be the reduction, it would bring it back to where it has been at about 10,000. Maybe slightly more, but not beyond that. So he doesn't have any tough decisions to make unless something happens, unless there's serious development there or in Pakistan and India, which forces him and his administration attention. It will also be important who his Secretary of State is, who handles foreign affairs. That will be important.
How long do you expect?
I have no idea. I can tell you who I don't want, but I won't say it on air.
Okay.
I could tell you.
Do you see any kind of...
By the way, of course, be it clear that I'm speaking as a professor.
Of course.
I'm not at all a spokesperson for the U.S. government.
Yes.
If they wanted a spokesman, they would get someone better than I am.
Okay. So do you expect any kind of change in the Iran policy?
There, it's more interesting. He has said during the campaign that the agreement with Iran is a terrible mistake. The worst agreement ever. This is campaign rhetoric. This is noise. The truth is that it cannot change very much. The international community has reached an understanding with, it's not just the United States. The United States is the most important part of this. But if he chooses to break from the agreement, the European businessmen will take all of the activity. Americans would be cut out of it. He's a businessman. Is he going to do that? There is the danger that the Iranians might completely break the agreement and say, we're going to start enriching uranium again. I think this would be very, very unfortunate. We have bought 10 or 15 years here in hopes that maybe Iran would change and that its position would be such that a more moderate forces would prevail in the country. But in any case, whatever difficulty the United States has with Iran, an Iran that does not have nuclear weapons is much easier to deal with than one that does. And so I'm hoping that he'll back off on that, although I must say I'm worried because some of the people who will be advising him on this share that same view that he has.
When the moderate forces are not successful in USA, when the moderate forces are not successful in India, when the moderate forces are not successful in UK, why you expect that moderate forces will be successful?
Because I'm always hopeful. Because I'm an optimist.
Okay. So, coming back to Pakistan, when we were talking about 9/11, there is a common perception in Pakistan that United States have always supported Pakistan into the military regimes.
Yeah.
Why?
Okay. Now, that's a very important point. When did the United States turn to Pakistan in particular? In 1980, after the Soviets had intervened militarily in Afghanistan.
Even before that, when Ayub era.
In the Ayub era, there was not, that was mutual.
Sento, all that.
That goes back to the containment of the Soviet
Union.
Look, from 1958 on, Pakistan had military governments until 1972, 71, 72. It had military governments. When the U.S. came to deal with Pakistan, whether it was the Ayub era, the Zia era, or the Musharraf.
No.
What?
There was between Zia and Ayub, there was Bhutto era.
Right.
But Bhutto era was not, US was not friendly with the Bhutto
No, but it had no reason why it had to be. There was no crisis that required the United States during the Bhutto era. There was nothing happened that required that the United States go to Pakistan and ask Pakistan's assistance. But when Zia came in, and
very aggressive statements that we will teach you the lesson that you are doing for the nuclear program. We will.
Oh no, right. But when Zia,
very much aggressive
but when
statements
Zia when Zia came in, the United States slapped sanctions on Pakistan because and really, as much as we did not have good relations with
Pressler Amendment.
Yeah, Pressler Amendment. we had, and I might mention when Nawaz was ousted in 99, the United States put sanctions because it went to a military government, because it's in our law that we're not supposed to support military regimes. But in each of these cases, when the United States needed Pakistan, you chose military governments. It wasn't as though it was a choice that we could align and request assistance from a civilian government. There was a military government in Pakistan, which we didn't put there. We didn't put Zia in, we didn't put Ayub in, and we didn't put Musharraf in. So it was a combination of those circumstances. And in fact, you would go on and say, in each case, our alliance with the military government strengthened that government. Because Zia was weak, Musharraf was weak. By involving them, we strengthened them. That's true, but they were already there. Now, why did that happen also?
But you did not support Bhutto, you did not support Benazir,
you
did not support Nawaz Sharif.
Yeah, but he didn't need our support, Bhutto. He didn't need our support. He never asked for our support. He was educated in the United States, his daughter was educated in the United States, but he never asked for his way to strengthen Pakistan was to strike arrangements with the Middle East. The United States had nothing to offer him. He didn't need the United States. Now, Nawaz Sharif, that was during a period of time, the 90s, when we had no interest in Pakistan. So we played no role in whether Bhutto came to power, Nawaz Sharif or Benazir Bhutto. We were outside of that. We had no leverage in this country. We had no influence. We didn't care. We didn't care particularly at that point because there were civilian governments. We would be satisfied with them.
But so even Musharraf, he has written in his book that there was a telephone call from the State Department, and they say whether you are with us. Or
that was after 9/11. Look, I was in the State Department at the time. I was there when that phone call was being made, at least in preparation for that phone call. So I know what you're talking about. But I'm telling you, that was after 9/11. We were going to go in to get Osama bin Laden. We were not interested in regime change. We told the Taliban, if you hand over Osama bin Laden, we don't care whether the Taliban government stays or goes. That's not our business. What we want is Osama bin Laden. They refused to hand them over, and we said to them, if you don't hand them over, then you become a target. We said to Pakistan that if you don't cooperate with us, and we have to make a target of Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, you're going to get involved because you're supporting the Taliban. You're the main backers of the Taliban. So you've got your retired military people there, and you've got heavy involvement. You're going to be hit as well. You don't want to be that. So what we said was, if you're not going to be with us, then you're going to be a target. That was reasonable.
This is a threat. This is a threat.
No. It was an offer that I wouldn't say that. It was an offer that Musharraf could not refuse, because what we said at the same time, and he said to the Pakistan people, he said, "Look, we really don't have a choice here. They're going militarily. They need us." And we cannot continue to stand with the Taliban. But we will get rewarded for our efforts. He told the Pakistan people that we will be the beneficiaries of this. And in fact, yes, then the assistance program started again. And indeed, then we had from 2001 to today, $20 billion of assistance. Most of it, nearly all of it, in the form of grants. So he was right.
Dr. Marvin, there is a lot of kind of queries and dissatisfaction over the U.S. policy and U.S.
Absolutely, yes.
bombing on Afghanistan, because most of the people say who toe this line, most of them argue that almost all bombers belong to Saudi Arabia, who took part in 9/11 activities.
In 9/11, yes.
Yeah. But you did not acted anything. You did not call their ambassador. You just focused on Afghanistan. Why?
Well, because,
why not
because
Saudi Arabia?
That's no. We focused on Afghanistan because that's where the so-called international terrorist groups had as their headquarters. Osama bin Laden didn't pick Saudi Arabia because he did not get along with Saudi Arabia, of course. He was enemy of the royal family. He came to Afghanistan. He created then out of the former Mujahideen.
Who is funding global jihad? All the rich families of the Arab family?
That's a large part of it. But what's funding the jihad, what's funding the Taliban now is a combination of money from the Gulf, private sources from the Gulf.
The rich families?
Rich families, yes.
Royal families?
They have been, I don't know, it's rumored, I have no proof of that, but whatever they are wealthy families in the Gulf. But also the diaspora. Remember, there are many Pashtuns in the Gulf. Whatever the source is, the Gulf. Remittances, can figure in this as well. Smuggling, drugs, illicit mining. There are extortion. They have captured weaponry. So there are many ways in which...
But Dr. Marvin, I know you'll be quite aware that in Pakistan especially, the Madrasa network is being funded by the governments of the Middle East.
No, that's something else. That
started earlier. That is the recruitment center of the militant forces.
Absolutely. And the Saudis put a lot of money into this in mosques and madrasas.
And your government has never talked to Saudis that why you are putting so much money for the madrasas.
No, but we have criticized that because we are well aware of the fact that this was the breeding ground for the terrorists.
Scholars usually
but
talk.
Those are the people,
scholars like you mostly talk, but your government has not taken a...
No, we cannot close down your madrasas. That's your job. We cannot do that for you. We have complained naturally about the fact that this has been a recruitment of people to the Taliban.
They are fighting with your government.
Yeah.
They are fighting with your forces.
Right, and that's
4 days ago.
But you don't want us to go into Pakistan. That's your job to do.
Okay, if you say this is our job, we are doing our job, and our military is fighting for it.
You have not. That's the one area where you've not regulated your madrasas. You talk about it, and it has to be done. Even the Saudis are sorry for what they did. They didn't expect to turn out. They were interested in spreading Wahhabi thinking. That was their interest here. But what they didn't expect was that they were going to be fueling the Taliban, because the Saudis don't want the Taliban to succeed. This is not a force that favors them.
No, I will take a final question from you, and I would like to...
wonderful questions.
Thank you very much. I would like to... there is a view about the U.S. foreign policy that whenever they intervene in some places like Afghanistan, like in the Middle East, like Libya, they destabilize the regions and they go away.
Yeah.
And then that region never is...
Okay. I'm not going to question that. Certainly Obama was asked about that. He said that was the one thing I regret. We intervened, but then we didn't follow through. If we were going to intervene to get rid of Gaddafi, and that was a time when all of the Arab leaders were falling. So Gaddafi, we have a particular we had a particular, because he was responsible for killing Americans, a particular plane incident. But it was part of the Arab Spring. We made a mistake there. Iraq was a mistake. Those of us, half of America, more than half of America, then and 90% now think Iraq was a mistake. But let me say this. If the United States does not intervene, it does not take the leadership, bad things happen also without us. Look, we went into the Balkans, and at least we brought an end to that conflict. If the United States had not intervened in the Second World War, Germany would have won, Japan would have won. So, I'm not defending every foreign policy, and things don't always end the way you think. There are unintended consequences of your actions. But the idea that somehow wherever the United States goes, it causes problems. But we're a stabilizer also. And when you had a crisis with India in 2002, and you nearly went to war, if it was not for an American diplomat, who was my boss, to come here and to negotiate between New Delhi and Islamabad, there would have been a war. I assure you there would have been a war. Because of the way in which both sides had mobilized. Neither side wanted a war, but they needed a mediator. So it's simplistic to say wherever U.S. goes, it destabilizes. It depends on the circumstances.
Diplomatic efforts is a different thing, and military intervention is a different thing.
It could
Yes.
be, but the point
Yes,
is that the
yes.
American role is necessary at times.
I'm not refusing to accept the American role in the global politics. I'm just saying your military interventions in Afghanistan.
And we tried diplomatically there. We tried to work with Mullah Omar and work out an agreement where in exchange for Osama bin Laden, the regime could remain. We tried diplomatically.
That
there.
created Taliban.
No, Taliban were created in the madrasas.
Yeah, when you went back and you left Afghanistan, that created a vacuum, and that was filled by Taliban. When you came back from Iraq,
right.
there was a vacuum that was.
So should we have stayed?
That
was
filled by
I'm glad
IS.
you brought that up, because there are many people said that we
That-
should have
that
at least
vacuum-
stayed in
that
Iraq,
vac-
and now we wouldn't have
IS is created by
Yeah.
that vacuum.
Yes, so now you're saying we should have stayed.
No, as you said that it was a mistake, and
No,
Americans
but
say
having
you-
made
you
the mistake,
you would
having
have
made
not,
the mistake.
you have not went
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. If we hadn't gone there in the first place, Saddam would be there. He was a bad man, but at least it would have been a stable region.
Yes.
Yeah, but once we went in there,
Even when there was Dr. Najibullah, there was a stable region.
oh, it was certainly, but that was nothing. Look, I don't know if you want to get into that, but a deal with Najibullah might have been a good idea. But the trouble was, and General Zia wanted to see, I think, but there were many elements there. The United States was not part of this. That did not want this, because you had built up a mujahideen which did not want a deal with Najibullah. So that was another matter. But in retrospect, Najibullah looked like a very promising.
You have been working since 50s to contain Soviet forces. So that was the part of your program, and now you say that was the plan of Zia. I think that
which was the plan of Zia?
That to fight with the Najibullah.
No, on the contrary. No, I actually, when the Geneva Agreement was signed, General Zia said he didn't want to sign the Geneva Agreement because he said, when the Soviets leave, you've got to have a government in place, and it should be a coalition government. The United States played no role in this. There has to be it did in getting the Geneva Agreement signed, but the decision on what would be after.
But before the Geneva Agreement, the Stinger missiles with Mujahideen on their shoulders.
Zia did not
created.
No.
He has no.
Thank goodness for that, because the war would have continued. But once the war was ending, should the United Could the United States have gotten the Mujahideen to agree to a deal with the communists?
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, Dr. Marvin, final question. How
Yeah.
do you foresee, do you see as an expert and analyst and a scholar, this in the near future, do you see a kind of stabilization in this region?
Well, I think it's really up to you.
Up to
Let
me?
me, no, not to you personally, but I know your audience may not agree with me. But the United States, above all, does not want to see instability here. That, for this reason, what we want you to do is to deal with violent extremists. It's in your interest, it's in our interest. We don't think, my personal view, but I think it also represents what the American position is. We don't want to see a destabilized region, because in that environment, that's where the militant extremists are able to thrive. This is where they benefit. They benefit from tension, from threats, and that's why threats, whether it comes from whatever source, strengthen them. They legitimize the extremists. When you're stable politically and militarily and economically, you're in a much better position to make your national action plan work.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marvin Weinbaum, for your time. नाज़रीन गुफ्तगू तां ॿुधी हिन ख़िते जी सूरत-हाल ते असांजे अमेरिकन स्कॉलर सां गुफ्तगू थी। प्रोग्राम जो वक़्तु पूरो थिए थो। पंहिंजे मेज़बान फयाज़ नाइच खे इजाज़त सदाईं गॾु।